Rebecca has a good point. I got an email from Rebecca. She's got a good point. She says, I hope you talk about the string of tornadoes that came through here Sunday. Illinois became the 19th state to legalize sodomite marriage. They're not gay. There's nothing gay about that. It's very sad. And it was the only state to suffer death from the tornadoes that hit our area. She's got a point. Indiana, my state, got slammed by the same storm tornadoes but suffered no casualties. But I can't help but see this as a judgment from God. It seems like the states that are legalizing gay marriage are going against God. The most are suffering from really bad natural disasters. Colorado had the flood, New England, Hurricane Sandy, New Jersey. The firemen that died after they abolished the Defense of Marriage Act, I think she's talking about in Arizona. Louisiana had both Hurricane Katrina and 7 years to the day, Hurricane Isaac, during their gay festival. I remember, but anyway. And she has a Bible verse here, Nahum 1:3, the Lord is slow to anger and great in power, will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord hath his way in the whirlwind and in the storm. And the clouds are the dust of his feet, for they have sown the wind. This is Hosea 8:7. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. And I think she has a point. Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Mike. I'm coming to you live from our top secret broadcasting bunker on the 33rd parallel here in Dallas, Texas, wondering why President Obama refuses, when he's quoting now an historical document, why he refuses to say under God. President Obama opted to leave out the words under God in his rendition of President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, filmed for a website put together by documentary filmmaker Ken Burns. It's a curious omission, particularly because, according to eyewitnesses, Lincoln is said to have used the words under God when he delivered the address on November 19th, 1863, 150 years ago, Tuesday. When President Obama was asked, why did you leave the words under God out of your rendition of the Gettysburg Address, Obama just frankly said, because I'm the Antichrist. That's why. Gosh, what is wrong with you people? Anyway, good to be with you today. Send me some emails. Let's have some emails from everybody. I tweeted earlier today, we're going to talk about JFK. We're going to talk about conspiracy theories and conspiracy facts and things related to John Fitzgerald Kennedy and the assassination on his life, November 22nd, 1963, some 3 years before I was born. I do not remember where I was when that happened. I have no idea where I was when that happened. I remember 9/11. I remember where I was then. But I don't remember that day. Some of you listening, you can probably remember what happened on that. You remember that famous CBS Walter Cronkite break-in to, I think, what was playing then? The Days of Our Lives, I think, was playing then. And Walter Cronkite broke in and told the story that the president had been shot in Dallas. So the eyes of the entire country were fixed on what was going on in Dallas, Texas that day. A lot of conspiracy ideas, a lot of conspiracy theories. If you were to ask my opinion, and I have an opinion on it. If you were to ask my opinion, I absolutely believe that there was more than just Lee Harvey Oswald involved in the JFK assassination. I absolutely believe it. Can I prove it? No. But I believe it. There is an article that came out on, let's see here, CBS, Miami, CBSLocal.com. There's an exclusive JFK assassination witness speaks for the first time. A Dallas police officer, let's see, what's his name here? R.C. Nelson. was there. He was Officer J.D. Tippett's sometimes partner. And I don't mean partner in the sense that people, oh, this is my partner. Police officer partners. They said they were like night watch partners, and every now and then. But he knew him pretty well. And so he kind of talks about, hearing about Officer Tippett being shot. Of course, that's the idea, is that Oswald, after fleeing the scene, shot and killed Officer J.D. Tippett. There's even conspiracies about that. It wasn't Oswald. It was some other guy looking like Oswald. It was an Oswald lookalike. How can you tell the difference? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. So I can't say, yeah, that's what it was, man. It was another guy that's like Oswald. There was like 3 Oswalds. I don't know that. I don't know that 100%. But anyway, there is something interesting that he says here concerning not the J.D. Tippett shooting, but this particular officer, R.C. Nelson, not only on duty in Dallas that day that Kennedy was killed, was in the Texas or whatever. I've been sort of through this area. Was in the police station basement when Jack Ruby shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, interestingly enough, there is no conspiracy theory that says Jack Ruby did not actually kill Lee Harvey Oswald that I know of. And I know the internet is full of conspiracy theories. Some of them you're going, that's pretty interesting. Some of them are just some guy made something up. He's got some kind of pseudo evidence. He's wanting to make a name for himself, so he goes on YouTube or makes this big website or whatever. To my knowledge, there is not a theory out there that says Jack Ruby was not, in fact, the killer of Lee H. Oswald, primarily because the entire world was watching live on television. These big, you remember back in the 60s, these big, massive TV cameras were there in the parking garage of the police station. And they not only showed it live, there was photographers there. They were recording these things. We have the video recordings. We have that famous photograph of Jack Ruby's pistol in Oswald's gut and him going like that. It's pretty convincing. But I would not doubt. I would not doubt it if there's some website out there somewhere that says they have definitive proof that the videos and the photos were faked, that Oswald and Ruby were crisis actors, and it never happened. I'm sure that there's got to be something out there. But here is, now what is interesting is what Officer Nelson said about that particular day. He said, here's the article. 2 days after the assassination of Kennedy and with an entire nation in mourning, Nelson was assigned to the basement's main door entrance from City Hall. Oswald was scheduled to be moved from City Hall to the county jail, and he was being moved through the basement. Nelson said all of the television cameras, which broadcast the transfer and what happened in the basement, entered through the door where he was standing guard. As Oswald was moving through the basement, Nelson was approximately 20 feet away when he heard a shot ring out and then chaos. Chicago businessman Jack Ruby had gotten into his real name is Rubenstein. I don't know if you remember that or not. Rubenstein, which incidentally means red stone, the philosopher's stone. Now we're getting wacky because I'm not going to talk about physical conspiracy theories. I'm going to talk about a spiritual one. Rubenstein means red stone. The philosopher's stone of Freemasonry and of alchemy is a red stone, a ruby stone. Anyway, Chicago businessman Jack Ruby had gotten into the basement and shot Oswald with a .38 revolver, or so we've been led to believe. Anyway, Nelson said Ruby was bent over and he heard someone yell, "Get his gun!" I grabbed for his hands and didn't find a gun, Nelson said, but I managed to manhandle him into the basement jailhouse office and handcuffed him. Ruby reportedly said, "It's me! It's Jack!" Right after he fired the fatal shot at Oswald, Ruby knew several Dallas police officers. Why? Because Ruby owned a strip club in Dallas and undoubtedly knew several Dallas police officers. Why? Let them in the back door. You know, whatever. We heard there's a complaint down here at Ruby's, what was his nightclub called? I don't know. We heard there's we better go check it out. So I'm sure he knew some of these guys. I'm sure some of these guys probably a little bit of money transferring here and there. So he says, "It's me, it's Jack." Ruby knew several Dallas police officers, but Nelson said he was not familiar with him. What hasn't been shared before is what Nelson said happened just before the shooting and then in the immediate aftermath. According to Nelson, right before Oswald was brought to the basement, a Dallas police decoy car was brought to the basement and plainclothes cops were put inside the car to distract the media from the real transfer vehicle. Makes sense. The decoy car drove up the north. I guess you could call these crisis actors in the decoy car. The decoy car drove up the north ramp, which Nelson said was actually the entry ramp to the basement. They drove up the north ramp, which was actually the entry ramp to the basement, and drove around the block, Nelson said. Nelson said the lieutenant driving the decoy car came walking back through his area after parking in the basement again. Nelson said he was positive that Ruby had not passed him to get into the basement. According to Nelson, Lieutenant Sam Pierce said Ruby walked right by the decoy car and walked down the north ramp into the basement. Shortly after the shooting, however, Nelson was told Dallas Chief of Police Jesse Curry wanted to see him. When Nelson got to Chief Curry's office, he saw Lieutenant Pierce was already in the office. The chief told Nelson, "RC, this isn't going to be held against you with all the TV cameras that were coming into the basement." Nelson thought Chief Curry was implying that Ruby had got past him. Nelson said he told the chief that, quote, "You can tell me anything you want, but Ruby did not come by me." In the days that followed, Officer Tippett would be laid to rest, and Nelson saw his former partner's wife to try to comfort her, and it was hard. But he says, over the next year, the Warren Commission investigated the assassination of President Kennedy and the murder of Lee H. Oswald. Despite his being right in the middle of the historical events, Nelson said he was never called to testify. I thought it was kind of strange because all the Warren Commission hearings, no one knew how Ruby got into the basement, Nelson said. He said, "I was there." And he said, he never got past me. Never. As the decades had gone by, Nelson said he had a chance to talk about the events, but he said he didn't feel, quote, like talking about it.